Hey, what is going on, IK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. We are back again today, giving you all that IK goodness. We are going to be touching on the latest update from what we're going to be experiencing in KvK once it eventually does release for the new 1.7 patch. Thermal towers is going to be the topic of discussion today as we go through some of the newly released information as of a couple days ago. As always, before we do get into everything, make sure you guys sub, like, ring that notification bell, and you can always join our Discord to be a part of our conversation. Today, thermal towers provide light and warmth in the Legion of Frostborn, which LOF, that is the Season 1, however many seasons for the first map variation that will be in KvK. They not only provide vision proximity, but also geothermal zones. Alliances must work closely together to produce and build thermal towers. Today, Glendaware will teach you about how to produce, build, demolish, and abandon thermal towers, as well as the powerful effects of these towers. Heart, smiley face. Okay, number 1. Alliance resource reserves. Producing thermal towers consumes Alliance resources. When Alliance members gather resources in this frozen land, some of the gathered resources will be converted at a certain ratio into Alliance resources, into extra Alliance resources. The Lord who gathered the resources does not lose any resources. Converted Alliance resources are produced as a bonus. So it essentially means that, as an example, if you gather 1 million resources, maybe 1% of those will go towards the extra Alliance resources. Again, we'll figure out what the ratio is after the mode is released, but that's just a brief example on how that might work. All Alliance resources contributed by Alliance members can be used to produce thermal towers. Producing thermal towers. Starting production, the Alliance Leader R6 and officers, which is nice, have authority to start producing thermal towers. Producing a thermal tower consumes time and Alliance resources. Only one thermal tower can be produced at the same time, and the production process cannot be canceled once it's started. This essentially means that you need to be very mindful of where you are going to place your thermal tower tactically, because what essentially it means is that you can place thermal towers, right, arguably on any area of the map, as far as that you have access to, right? And you'll see that here in the building thermal towers once we get to that portion. Quick production. Use quick production to reduce thermal tower production time. Storage. Completed thermal towers are stored in the Alliance warehouse. The warehouse can hold a limited number of thermal towers. The more thermal towers there are in the warehouse, the more time and resources are needed to produce additional thermal towers. Now, this is something very similar for those of us who have played Rock, right, where after you essentially get to a certain amount of flags, you then resources will cost a little bit more to build them, along with other areas. So again, kind of goes in line with that, but this almost seems as though it's probably each consecutive one, instead of it being like the first 5 thermal towers cost this much and take this much time, and then number 6 through 10 are this, 11 through 15 are this. Again, maybe it could work out that way, but based on how it reads, it seems like it's back to back. Now, building thermal towers. First tower, the Alliance Leader R6 can start building thermal towers if your Alliance does not have any thermal towers on the battlefield yet. The first thermal tower can be placed in any area outside the range of the other Alliance's thermal towers. Additional towers. If your Alliance has already constructed a thermal tower, a new thermal tower must be placed within the vision proximity of your current thermal towers and cannot overlap with the geothermal zones created by other Alliance's thermal towers. This means, like we said in producing thermal towers, right, you can place your first one, as we said, some being your first, anywhere on the map that you, from what we're gathering, have vision of, right, for the zone you're able to access. After that, you just have to place thermal towers down based on where your vision is. Now, hopefully it doesn't end up being one of those things where the vision of the thermal tower, like the edge of the vision of the thermal tower is where you'd place the thermal tower, but then the edge of the new thermal tower is in line with the edge of the currently placed one, right? So it's almost like 2 rings that are connecting on the perimeters instead of you being able to place it farther than that. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm iffy. I'm 50-50 on either, but again, just knowing how it's going to work will obviously allow alliances to better prepare. Now we get into building thermal towers. After a thermal tower is placed, alliance members can dispatch troops to start constructing it. The more troops are dispatched, the faster the construction speed. Very similar to when you're upgrading a city in your server or in your kingdom. Building effects, vision proximity, and geothermal zones. A completed thermal tower will provide your alliance with vision proximity and a geothermal zone within a certain range from itself. Overlapping geothermal zones. If the geothermal zones of thermal towers belonging to separate alliances overlap, the overlapping area will only belong to the thermal tower that was constructed earliest or first. Vision proximity is not subject to any overlap restrictions, and alliances will always enjoy the full vision proximity of their thermal towers. Demolishing enemy thermal towers. Destroying an enemy's thermal tower is no simple matter. First, you must defeat all troops garrisoned at the thermal tower. Very similar to how you have to defeat all garrison troops in a city's garrison, right? And then you have to have basically do the last hit and have control of that garrison in order for that city to eventually be captured or for you to successfully hold off the defense or the attack. After the demolition troops have entered the thermal tower, the latter's durability will fall gradually. Very similar to a flag and rock, right? Except the difference is that in rock, right, you just attack it once. If there's no troops in it, it'll keep burning. In this instance, which I want to say is similar to how IB plays a little bit, where you have to keep the troops in there in order for the thermal tower's durability to lower. So you basically have to have an active garrison defense in the tower in order for it to consistently keep lowering its durability, right? I actually like this mechanic because there's a little bit of a give and take that you have to go with. When durability falls to 0, the thermal tower is completely destroyed. The speed at which the durability falls will increase gradually while the demolition troops are inside the thermal tower. Now, we don't know if it's the same thing. If you put in more troops or more demolition troops in the thermal tower, will it lower it faster? Or is it one of those things where it bonuses off of where the rate increases based on the duration that you're in there, right? Like maybe the first minute you're in there, it's at a 1 times reduction rate. Maybe once you're in there for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, then the rate goes to 2 times, where the durability falls at a pace of 2 times as fast. So we'll see how that goes. But it's at least nice that there's an option to have it go a little bit quicker or slower depending on how long it takes. Lastly, abandoning thermal towers. There is a limit to the number of thermal towers each alliance can build. The alliance leader, R6, and officers may thus choose, Saya, to abandon some thermal towers based on their current needs. Only one thermal tower can be abandoned at a time. Abandonment can be canceled in time. So very similar to abandoning a city. On your kingdom, you can only abandon one city at a time. So that's pretty much everything that we have on thermal towers. What I will say is, just talking about thermal towers in general, I actually like the idea of them, one, doing it differently than how rock does it, because you actually have to, it's almost like building a thermal tower is like defogging fog of war, right, or granting you vision on fog of war. The difference here is that you could still see people around the map from what we've gathered so far. You just cannot attack them until vision is on them. So the strategies are very interesting on what can develop from here. You can know ahead of time where you're going to go, how you're going to position, and then you can look to build thermal towers either at that area at certain points in order for you to build off of them. You can build a few, then abandon them all, and then basically replace wherever you want on the map. You can use other alliances to do that. I mean, it's very interesting on just some of the ideas that are kind of brainstorming in my Jimmy Neutron brain blast moment that I'm having right now. But again, I like the idea that they're adding in some kind of flagging element. They're just doing it in their own way that is unique to Infinity Kingdom. That is what I appreciate and like, that it's not a direct copy of something else, but it's taking something that makes sense, putting their own spin on it, and making it theirs, right? That's what I love to see. So I'm excited to see how thermal towers could be used. Let me know in the comments down below how you think thermal towers can be used, and do you see them being used at certain points, how you would use them with certain alliances? What are your thoughts around thermal towers? Do you like the process from building to when they're up to demolishing? And any feedback you might have on that, I'd love to hear that down there below. That is it for me today. Until next time, we will catch y'all later.